Hi everyone, in this quick video I'm going to go over an example with you in Excel that will show you how you can calculate the holding period return for a specific stock. Now don't be alarmed by this term. Holding period return is exactly what the name suggests. It's the return that you make from holding the stock for a certain period of time. That is it. That time period could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 3 days, it could be 6 days, it could be 5 weeks. Whatever is your holding period, oftentimes we're interested in understanding what is the total return that we made during that holding period. So here is an example to illustrate this idea. So let's suppose at the beginning of 2018, Jan 1, 2018, you bought a stock. Think of this as the end of 2017, same thing. So you bought a stock for $74, you held on to it till the end of 2018. The price of the stock barely moved. It only went up from 74 to 76. But then you held on to it, and the price by the end of 2019, actually it dropped to 65. But then by the end of 2020, it went up to $80, then it went up to 94, and then it fell back to $90. Now, if you notice, you held on to this stock for a period of 5 years, from the beginning of 2018, so the entire 2018, 19, 20, 21, and 22, 5 years. If somebody asked you, what was your holding period return, what they're really asking is, how much return did you make from holding the stock over a period of 5 years. Now, looking at these pieces of data, you can probably say that, look, this seems like a simple exercise. If I bought something for $74 and by the end of 5 years it's worth $90, then a simple way of calculating holding period return, which I'm abbreviating as HPR, is simply 90, which is the new price, minus the price at which I bought the stock for, 74. I divide that by 74, and lo and behold, 21.62%. And there is nothing wrong with this logic. In fact, this is exactly right. Your holding period return is 21.62%. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I've made this example such that there are no dividends that are being paid. With dividends, things become a little bit more complicated, but we can ignore the effect of dividends for the sake of simplicity, at least in this example. What I really want to show you is how you can think about holding period returns in an alternative way when price data is not given to you explicitly. So to make this point, let me ask you, let's suppose that you bought the stock at the beginning of the year for 74. By the end, it was worth 76. If I ask you what return did you make in that 1 year? Well, it's similar logic that you can use. You can say, you know what? I bought something for 74. It's worth 76 by the end of the year. So my return is 76 minus 74. All of this divided by 74. So 2.70%. I'm going to call this return in the first year. So R1. R1 is 2.70%. Now imagine that at the end of the first year, you immediately sell your stock for 76 and then you immediately buy it back for 76. Okay? You have made a return of 2.70% because you just sold the stock for 76, but now you have made your second investment in that stock at the same price. Why am I doing this? Because if I wanted to ask you what is the return that you will make by the end of the second year, notice that you can think of this as me asking you, look, you bought the stock for 76 and now you're going to sell it at 65. What is the return that you're making in the second year? And that calculation is very simply 65 minus 76 divided by 76. So negative 14.47%. This is essentially your R2, return in second year. The main point here is that when you continue to hold on to a stock beyond the first year, it is as if you have just sold it and then immediately bought it back at the same price, so that you can calculate your second year return as the difference between the price that prevails at the end of the second year and the price at which you quote unquote bought it for at the end of the first year. And you can use a similar logic to understand your returns in the third, fourth, and fifth year. So I'm going to copy this and paste this through and through. And so these are the returns that you're making in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to call them R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5, respectively. These are your returns. So now why am I calculating these returns? Because if you have these annual returns, there's an alternative way that you can figure out what your holding period returns is. The calculation goes as follows. Let's suppose that at the beginning you had just $1. So you had just $1. Let me ask you this. By the end of the first year, how much would that $1 become? Yes, you're right. It would become 1 plus 2.70%, right? Because in the first year, you'd get 2.70%. So in the first year, you will have 1 plus this 2.70%. Now I ask you, you keep that invested for another year. How much will this amount become? So if you have 1 plus 2.70%, by the end of the second year, this entire amount will go down by 14.47%. So all of this will get multiplied by 1 plus this negative 14.47%. So this expression right here tells you how much $1 will become by the end of the second year. But you keep it invested. Let's suppose so it's 0.8783. If you keep it invested, what's going to happen? In the third year, this entire amount is going to become what? Correct. It's going to go up. This entire expression is going to go up by 23.08%. So I'm going to multiply this by 1 plus 23.08%. This represents the total amount that $1 has become by the end of 3 years. But I don't stop there. I continue to hold on to the stock, right? So I say, okay, what happens in the fourth year? Then this entire expression, which is the amount that you have by the end of the third year, this will grow by another 17.50%. And then this entire expression will grow by, well, negative 4.26%. My point is that $1 has grown to become this entire thing by the end of 5 years. And if in the end you ask yourself, okay, now if I take away my initial investment, which was that of $1, like how much more than $1 did I make? And when you do this, you will get exactly 21.62%. The main point being that this is an alternative way in which you can calculate holding period returns. It's 1 plus the return in the first year times 1 plus the return in the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then you subtract 1. As you can see, the answer that you will get will be identical to the answer that you got when you had this pricing data available. And so sometimes in your textbooks, you might come across a formula for holding period return, which looks like 1 plus R1 times 1 plus R2 times 1 plus R3 all the way. And if your holding period is time period, say T, in our example, this was 5 years, then you go from R1 all the way till R5, in general, some time period T, and then you subtract 1 from it. And that is yet another way in which you can get holding period returns. So the idea behind holding period returns is an important one. Every now and then you may come across situations where you are provided certain investments, say one mutual fund versus another mutual fund, and both mutual funds will give some information on the returns that those funds have provided over the last 5 years or 3 years or 10 years. And one of the ways in which you can try and understand which fund is better is by looking at their holding period returns. You know, if you had invested like your money for 5 years in one mutual fund versus the other, where your holding period return would have been higher. This is one of the ways. Now, is that the best way to evaluate which fund is better? That's a whole different question. But at least now, when some funds report something like holding period return, you will at least know what that means and how that has been calculated. If you found this video useful, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And feel free to ask any questions using the comment section. Happy learning.